Witchers, welcome back to the Witcher Lorecast. This is your host, Tom. I'm also known as Robots. And Toasty, my co-host here. Toasty, I watched the last two episodes of Blood Origin just last night. Yep. That's it. End of the show. That's it. That's all we're going to say about that. Toasty just doesn't have any words anymore.
I mean, what'd you think?
I think that's what this whole episode is going to be about, is what we thought about it. Yeah. So welcome back. We're talking about the final two episodes of Blood Origin, and like last time, we're going to do our best to not just focus on the negatives, but to explain why the negatives are there. That's fair, right? To lament a little bit, explain, but also some positives. I still have some positives. We're going to try to be fair, but just so you guys are aware, it is not the best show ever made. By a lot. So where do we start, Toasty? Let's talk about episode 3.
So I know I divulged last week at every thing that I hated, so I'm going to try to keep it more streamlined this time. We'll see how that goes. But anyways, for episode 3, we start off with Isla running from the centipede and escaping with the rest of the 7 through the portal. Or not the 7, I guess they were the 6 at the time, and consequently meeting up with Meldoff, making them the 7, who helps them hide from Balor's beast, who is apparently flying around in the area, looking for food, which, I'm wondering, 1, what that thing eats, 2, how does it eat?
Because its mouth is like mostly closed. It's like just not even teeth. It's just like face stretched.
Like whatever, like the mouth is like stitched shut in, it's like
weird.
Freaky like horror stuff. Is like
yeah,
I don't know.
It's weird looking.
But so they run, they hide in Meldoff's like cave hideout, and then they basically debrief her into the plan, because why not trust some rando person you just met in the woods and tell them that you want to take down the Empire? Sure.
Well, I mean, let's play both sides of this. She was friendly enough to help them not get eaten by the beast and to give them a place to stay. And some food. So some trust was earned there. She also completely explained to them that she was crazy and why her hammer was named what it was and why she kisses it. And
we get that afterwards.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Basically, they plan on how to assault the castle, and what kind of issues they'll run into. And they the big question is how we're going to deal with Balor's beast. He's just a little too scary. And they come up with the idea of integrating the DNA of a monster into a person.
Like a Witcher.
Yeah.
Huh. All right. I'm on board with that part.
Yeah.
So far, okay.
Zakare seems to be bothered. She's like the blonde mage. Her and Sindril kind of have a talk outside in the woods about their mom, and then it might have been their mom.
It sounds like the woman who raised them sort of thing, because they're not biological twins. They're like celestial twins or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, but it seems like they were both raised by the same woman, and they had to do something terrible to kill her accidentally, and then there's all the regret.
They tried to bring her back. It didn't work.
She turned into like a zombie or something.
Zombie or something. It's just kind of like off the wall, like character exposition, as they try to give character to these characters that they have not yet characterized. Who knows?
Who knows?
They, they kind of. Obviously, Sindril gets her kind of back on board with things. So they go back and they have a talk about, who's going to do it. It's decided that Isla will be the one to become the first Witcher.
Right.
And they throw a wake party for her because she's going to die, essentially.
Right.
And
there's all this food. All of a sudden, she's like, dwarf girl's like, yeah, I got a lot of food. You know, this is where I live.
They were all mushrooms. I don't know if you noticed that. It actually, that didn't throw me off because I thought it was actual food, but it was literally just mushrooms. Yeah, and that was it. And I'm like, okay,
this isn't a big complaint. Viable. This is just one of those, like, they definitely shined hung a lantern on it. Like, where did all this food come from? She answers the question. Well, you know, I got it. So what? I store up. It's cool.
It's like, yeah, just because I live in a cave doesn't mean I don't live nice. And it's like, all right, whatever. I mean, there's still mushrooms. It's still all mushrooms. All right. Fine. And during this party, we get like a nice conversation between Meldoff and Brother Death. Meldoff, you know, gives us our, like, you know, what happened to her and the woman she was in love with, and why her hammer is named Gwyn is because
she hunted everybody down and all. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. This is just basically like exposition of, you know, her character. And then Brother Death tries to reciprocate and she falls asleep on him, which is like, okay, dick move.
Yeah, it was a slightly humorous moment. It was fine.
Yeah. All right. Then Isla starts to sing a song about like meeting a lover in a next life. And Fjoll falls in love with her.
Yeah. So this is the beginning of this is where this is going, isn't it? Moment. Yeah, right. The whole like, now we have a song in a touching moment between them because of the song, or with the song as well, right? And then that's going to come back later, like the Hulk and Black Widow or something. Like, yeah. All right, cool.
But so he falls in love with her. Then like they're outside. Talking. They're obviously both very intoxicated, and they're kind of having that, like, you know, like if you were born, you know, into the life you were, and you were born like as a farmer, where do you think you'd be at now, or something like those hypothetical questions, you know. And then they make out under dramatic lightning.
Right.
I was. It wasn't even raining. It was just, and that was a lighting. Long, like
everything for a show that seems to be moving at light speed and just jumping from one thing to the next. This episode dragged so much. It felt so slow because I think what it was trying to do is make up for these touching moments that it didn't foreshadow in the previous 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Like, we get these characters who just show up in the first 2 episodes and we don't know a whole lot about them. And so by this episode, they're like, oh, well, I guess we got to tell the audience about stuff or build a romantic, you know, situation. And so episode 3 becomes
some emotional something.
Right. Episode 3 becomes, okay, let's fill in the gaps for all the things we didn't explain in the first 2 episodes. And it just drags on. And
so then cut to morning. I don't know if it's supposed to be like it. To me, it was implied that they slept together, but I guess they didn't.
Yeah, I don't think. You had mentioned this on the previous episode about like that happens twice in this episode, and I was like, and so this moment I was like, oh, this is the first time it happens.
I rewatched that part and I was like,
she wakes up and he's gone. Out. Yeah, I think it was just kind of they had a touching moment, and they fell asleep, kind of thing.
Yeah. But she wakes up in the morning, hears Fjoll's screams because he went behind her back to undertake the trial of the grasses instead of her.
Yeah, the fact that it's even called the trial of the grasses already is a little weird.
Yeah, like where the grass at? Just wondering.
Right. Like, yes, they went and they got some herbs. Yeah, I'm gonna go get the herbs, as she says. Yes, I get that the stuff is mixed in. It has herbs in it, so maybe they named it that. But the fact that like, oh, this is just the name, and everybody knows that this is the name of a thing we just invented right now. It's a little bit weird. Yeah.
But outside the cave, while this is happening, Meldoff is basically telling Brother Death about how, you know, just like how elves defile everything, and that, you know, she's so empty inside, and so she wants to go on this mission because she's hoping she'll die.
Right. One last hurrah.
Yeah.
Might as well help you guys out.
In this moment, she does tell us that the dwarves built them on. This is where it was. I was like trying to remember where I remember hearing it from. But yeah, they built the monoliths, and she calls them specifically cock towers because they were
yes.
They built them to like help make the land fertile.
Right.
And so somehow that technology has been manipulated into opening portals to other worlds. Don't ask me how. Whatever.
Right. And another funny thing here: the reason we're trying to open the portals to other worlds is to get more food, and they have towers that help make the land more fertile.
Guess they shouldn't mess with the towers.
Maybe they should have just let the towers make the land more fertile.
I guess so. Yeah, but whatever. Meanwhile, in Zentria, Avalok steals the book from Balor, and then is almost killed by Balor whenever he realizes that the book was stolen.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like stops his intent to kill Avalok when Aridin shows up holding a knife to like his apprentice's throat. So he stops, and he is arrested. But then Avalok tries to open a portal using the book, and he can't do it. So they realize that they're going to have to like cut a deal with Balor in order to try and get him to open the portals, because he seems to be the only person that can, other than like Syndril, but he's not here right now. So then Skian, who was pissed the night before because apparently there's no secret way into the castle. Fionn just lied about that.
Okay, so that whole thing was just like, what? Wait, what? Why would you lie about that?
He just like recruited all these people for a suicide mission, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But so she goes to Zentria and brokers a deal with Merwin to like to bring Fionn
alive
and kill the others for like a monetary reward, plus the return of her the Ghost Clan's like sacred sword, essentially.
Sure. Right.
And then Merwin, like after that, she leaves. Merwin goes to Balor to try and cut a deal to get his help. And they come to an agreement. Then we come back to the cave where Fionn is kind of freaking out because, he's a Witcher now. And he's probably like his senses are kind of crazy, and he can smell died, and the process was really painful.
Right. I can smell your blood. I'm so angry. Yeah.
And then they bang.
Yeah, and then like
that's really all that. Like there's a couple words.
It's I feel so bad for you. You're so messed up. Even though you betrayed me and did it anyway. Even though I was going to be the one who did it, but I feel so bad for you.
She wasn't like I'd be pissed.
She was a little pissed, and then it was like, oh no, I'm just more worried about him because she loves him or something.
Oh yeah. By the way, during the trial of the grasses, there was the dramatic moment where Fionn like died, but he didn't die. It was just that bait that they always do.
Right. Yeah.
But then Skian returns, and they leave on their way. She like leads them into this dead-end canyon somewhere, which is like obviously like a trap. And then a bunch of Zentrian soldiers. There's a lot of shoulders too.
They have
for every soldier. They have
armor on their shoulders.
Yeah, but a bunch of Zentrian soldiers show up, and there it is. There's the double cross. Except it's a double cross because a bunch of mercs show up and they wipe out the Zentrian soldiers, and
shooting arrows off the top. Yeah,
she did this huge like plan without like telling anyone.
So this is one of my biggest issues here, is the whole double cross thing. Because it only makes sense to like wind up the audience and get us like, oh no, oh yay, right? Like if she really was going to do this, she would have told them, right? Like why not equip them with the knowledge and make them realize that it's going to look like they're all coming after us, but then we're going to turn it around on them. Everybody's going to be fine. Just be ready for my mark, right? Like there's no reason not to tell the party. It's not like she didn't trust them. And then secondly, the I think the way this works is she got paid. She must have gotten paid money up front somehow.
She did. She did, in order to go 20,000 in advance.
Right. In order to pay she uses that for the mercs who then come help her. But when did she have time to do all of this? The timeline is like that day he turns, right? That night he turns into a Witcher. That morning he wakes up, then they leave, and she's only gone like that night in order to, like, the timeline makes no sense. Where did she go to get the mercs? Where did they even come from? Right.
Look, Fial and Lark were fucking for a long time. Apparently.
I guess so. And they've been talking about trying to get mercs and traveling across the countryside and stuff. But this is the end of the Game of Thrones problem, is the whole, like, it doesn't make sense that, like, one day they're here and then the next day they're like way across the continent over here. And the same thing happened at the end of the second season of The Witcher, where it's like they're in Cintria.
Where Yennefer and Geralt are having that same conversation.
And then all of a sudden they disappear and they're like hundreds of miles away in Kaer Morhen, like 2 hours later. It doesn't make any sense. That, like, and I get that some people would be like, well, it doesn't have to make, not everybody understands the geography, so it doesn't really have to make sense. But on a very like intuitive level, it still just doesn't feel right. She left, she went to the town. She was approached by a group of soldiers on horseback before she even got to the gates. When does that ever happen? The gates would be closed. She'd have to go to the gates and they'd just say, what do you want? Are you welcome in our city or not? Right? Like, why was she approached on horse? That doesn't make any sense. The fact that the city doesn't even look like a real location. In every single walled city in all of existence, there's been the city walls, and then there's more settlement or farmland outside the city walls. Right? The fact that it's just barren up to the city walls doesn't make any sense. There's just so much about this stuff that just doesn't, like, when you think about it, you realize what it is, but it just feels.
I mean, you're
dumb.
starting to see why why the elves are running out of resources, because they're not making proper use of their land
farming
space.
The land around the city.
All the farmers could be out there planting the fields.
Every walled city, the poor people who can't get in the city build hovels up against the walls of the city, and the rest of the land around the city is tilled for. And if it's not for plants, then it's like cattle and like there's stuff out there, right? Like, it doesn't make any. There's no farmland inside the city. I believe
even in like the actual, like, the main, like, Netflix series, I believe that it shows Sintra having, like, because they have like the wall, like the inner part of the city, the wall, and then like the second part, this like the burnt out like part of the city or whatever. Yeah, like they show it on every aerial shot, and then here is just elves just. To be fair, we do know from like episode 2 of season 1, the elves don't know how to farm.
I guess they just don't know how to farm.
Because Phil Evangel, they're like, man. I guess we don't know it from the show. We know it from the books that the elves don't know how to farm and need help learning how to farm.
Even though they are more at one with nature than most of the other species out there.
Yeah, I don't know.
It doesn't make any sense. All right, so that's the episode 3, right?
Well, so they use the armor of the soldiers that they killed to get up to like basically get inside the city, and like Fial starts to kind of lose it because this brand new prototype Witcher has like major anger issues, but it's all right though. Don't worry, Isla can sing him down, right? And that's what really matters.
Hey there, it's getting late.
I said I was going to try, but you started going off on it, so now I got to talk about it. The logistics here about like them walking up to the city, like one, like all of them just have like their like some of their most defining features just out on display, front center. Right, Isla's standing right next to Fial,
right, which makes no sense. Like, don't put her in the front.
Her helmet doesn't cover her face really at all,
or her hair, which is very notable.
Obviously notable.
Right.
2,
there's a dwarf.
Why the fuck would they have dwarf armor?
Right. Like they don't have like
in armor that fits, and how's no one being like, why is there a dwarf among their ranks?
Right.
Because like there wouldn't be. They were all elves. So, but like she's just there, and it's obviously no problem, I guess.
Yeah. Like this whole scene is just not set up right. You would have put Fionn in chains, but then you would have put anybody else who was recognizable in chains as well and said, look, I caught all of them for you. Here's, we agreed, to deliver them.
Or if you want to keep the ruse of like having them like so that they don't have to like go to the palace too or whatever, like, have them cover themselves better and then put them like in the back.
Right.
Or like in the middle so that like people don't like where everyone else is around them.
Right.
So that people don't see them.
Or it's not completely unreasonable if you have 50 men that you wouldn't also have maybe horses and a cart with some supplies for those men as well to go out on their day journey in order to go hunt somebody down. So why not just hide them in a cart? Like you could have written that into it. There's lots of other ways to write this in so it doesn't look stupid. But yeah, it absolutely looks super dumb because anybody with eyes, especially any of the other guards would be like, why is there a dwarf there? We don't have dwarf guards. Immediately, no, you're not coming in. There's something wrong. Hold on. Like, yeah. Anyway, all right. So that's episode 3, and the voice thing follows through, right? So episode 4. Let's try to get through the details of episode 4.
Yeah. So this one, there's like this one's obviously much more fast paced. So we start with Merwin, Aridin, and Balor basically coming together at the monolith so that Balor can open a portal. He and Aridin plus like a group of soldiers and like Balor's apprentice all go through, and then Balor has like a Thanos moment where he kills his apprentice because apparently she's
the part of him he loves the most.
Yeah. Which is like, okay.
Totally cool. Didn't buy that.
This
we didn't build that
be as far-fetched if you had maybe like shown us how much she cared about this person.
Right.
But you had her in like 4 scenes, 3 of which she just stood there.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. No. At no point do we see a moment where like he's a terrible guy, but like, oh, he goes out of his way because he really treats her nice, and so clearly there's something going on there. Or like she's his adopted daughter, and there's a really touching connection between them. Nothing. None of that.
Yeah. So. But anyways, he kills her so that he can get access to the soul stuff. I mean. Chaos magic.
There's Marvel all over this, but like in the worst ways.
Yeah. There's even like a weird orange tint to this world, which is also the same for like Vermeer or whatever.
Yeah. And I like most Marvel movies. They're just taking the wrong lessons from them. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, but so he gets the chaos magic, and then like tosses Aridin and his soldiers through like a portal, I guess, into another world.
Mm-hmm. Also, and why not just blow them up? You got chaos magic. You could just burn them all down. We saw you shooting flamethrowers, but no, it has to do the thing that makes them maybe still alive instead of just killing them right there.
Yeah.
And the dramatic scene of the knife like stopping an inch from his face and then them getting pulled back, like the sword blade. Like, is it really?
Like, oh,
nobody
cool.
would just stand there. Come on.
Yeah. I don't know. Aridin, flick your fucking wrist. You would have cut him. You would have stabbed him in the eye. Like, just like.
just a little further. You got him.
You could have gotten it, but it's dramatic, so it's fine. Anyways, we get back to like the town. The party gets to the Skian and Fionn gets to the castle, and she brings him before Merwin. And
Merwin doesn't honor the deal.
Yeah.
Basically, right.
Oh, by the way, just a small note. Avaloq runs in right before Fionn shows up to tell her that he figured out how to time travel with Central's notes.
I can't even open a portal, but now I think we can time travel. It's cool. I got this.
Yeah. Cool story, bud. It doesn't matter because Fionn comes in and anything Avaloq says is automatically null and void.
Yeah.
but cool. So yeah, she doesn't honor the deal. The mercs like take the square and incite rebellion by, cool rousing speech, which granted, she gives a very like a rousing speech, and is like, here, I give this food back to you. Then there's no food.
Mm-hmm.
Which generally you would normally then lose the crowd. If you give big rousing thing and then just dud right there, the crowd's usually like, you've lost them. They don't follow.
Right. And she looks at it and she's like, shit. And then she turns around, and I think this is a moment to her credit. Now, I don't know that they sold us on it, but she's like, see, look what they've done. They're leaving nothing for you. The only food basically is in the palace, right? So like, let's do our thing. And they're like, yeah. Like there's the lady in the front who's like, yeah.
Which, by the way, I would just say this scene would be way more impactful if like they had done more besides just tell us that she was the Lark and therefore the voice of the people. Mm-hmm. Because they just tell us that at the beginning. And so it's like, oh, okay. So she's obviously very important to the people, but they don't really show us except for like one moment earlier on with like a family who was like, oh, you're the Lark. But then they try to like, get the Lark out of her, and she's just like, fuck off. So like, she's just like, okay.
Right.
So, but it's whatever. If the crowd riots, they sing her song. Like the rebellion has begun. Mm-hmm. Merwin gives this a big speech to Fial about how like she didn't want to be a footnote in someone else's history, and Fial's like, cool story, bro. I don't care because you murdered my family and now I'm going to kill you. Like it's like also like, do you really think you murdered his family or like incited the murder of his family? He doesn't care about how you're like, oh, I just didn't want to get overlooked. That's not a good enough reason to murder someone's entire family.
And we've already been told in his conversations with what's her face, the girl that he falls in love with, that he doesn't care about her anymore.
Yeah.
And that he's like, yeah, no,
good on him.
He's like, that wasn't real. That wasn't real is basically what he says. Right. So, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like this happens exactly like, you're like, yeah, no, this is exactly what happened.
He has the weird, like horror movie, like head twitchy thing as he like rages.
Right.
We'll talk about that after. Mm-hmm. But Skian escapes her guards and kills them, takes back her sword, lets everyone else into the castle. The mages peel off to go destroy the monolith. Fial is fighting the giant monster. Isla goes to find the Empress to basically tell her she ain't shit and then like stab her with a knife. Very anticlimactic, whatever.
She turns her own knife on her, and you're like, yeah, I saw that coming.
Yeah, all right. The rest of them fight soldiers in the hallway. Cool. Little dwarf girl gets shot with an arrow in the shoulder, pulls the arrow back out and shoots it back, and then nothing's ever talked about that wound ever again. It's like, that wound didn't happen. It's fine. It's totally, she's
totally
tough. Cool. I would also just like to make a statement that like they just like they post tweets like talking about how cool this fight scene in the hallway is. It's all right.
It's fine.
Fine. Like it's like Geralt and Blaviken, but like much worse. Because like at least in Geralt, like at least the camera moved. Like it's like you could say that it was like a cool camera angle, but like it was just a straight line down the hallway. Like Geralt's at least had like where it like, turned from them to them, and then they just like one take, an actual like difficult one take down this alleyway. But here it's just like, we'll just follow her down the hallway, and she just like one cuts everybody. Like, okay, cool.
I mean, the fighting looks cool. Like, just to be on the positive sides, at least the fighting looks cool.
Yeah, I guess it's more realistic in the sense because like it doesn't take more than one blow generally to kill people.
Right. A sword hitting you in most places is pretty damaging.
Yeah. But so then the mages get to the monolith, and counter Balor, and he's just like, how about you burn? It just like starts flamethrowing, and they're like, how the hell did that happen? What?
They're like, oh, you can feel the chaos in the air. Okay, yeah, that's what happened.
Cool. Apparently, together. Y'all know about chaos too, even though y'all didn't felt it talk when to the weird spirit.
When they travel, it was like the feeling we got when we teleported to the other place feels like that. That must be what it is, right?
Fair enough. Y'all and we're just gonna glaze past this for now. Fjall hulks out.
Yep.
And takes a giant. Which, by the way, it's a stone like a marble statue, big marble statue with an actual sword,
like an actual giant sword, or just a big stone giant sword. I don't know if it was metal or not.
It's an actual sword.
Was it metal?
It's made out of steel. Okay. Somebody blacksmithed this thing, or whatever. And he just like hurls it
at the beast.
The beast,
yeah. And it's somehow okay. So let's talk about the beast real quick. Somehow dodges all the laser beams. But he's got like Witcher power, so he's faster. So, okay.
He dodges all the laser beams while standing still.
What did you notice? The tendrils on the beast's head are the same as the 3-pronged symbol of the Empire. That shape is the tendrils on the head that shoot the laser beams on the beast, which is like, if you go, oh, cool, there's a reference there, but the reference doesn't make it. Why would they make the sign for the Empire, the symbol for the Empire, the tendrils on the beast's head?
They wouldn't.
That doesn't, like, it makes sense that it's 3-pronged because they brought together 3 different kingdoms. I get that. But those, like, go look at the beast again. The shape of the tendrils with a little funny thing at the end is the same shape as those little forked little things.
All right.
Yeah. What?
Yeah. Also, he like hurls the sword like a million miles at the beast, and the beast also just like flies into it.
Right,
it's just like oh yeah, I'm gonna take this.
Yeah.
Mike kills it.
Yeah.
Whatever. And then like everyone comes out and is like looking at him. And he like, sorry. Right before this, the Empress gets to her throne and then like pulls the knife out, because when Isla like stabbed her with the knife, it was like, if she left it in, she could get treated, but if she pulled it out, she could die. And so she like goes all the way over to like her throne, which, by the way, she probably couldn't seek treatment. Her castle's under siege, where the doctor's probably gone, but you know, ignore that. She makes it to her chair. The rando merc dude walks in and is like, oh yeah, the people aren't going to be happy with you. And then the people come in and she's just kind of like, remember me, and pulls the knife out and dies. Whatever.
It's another one of those like, why?
Yeah. Why? But they like, yeah, so they all kind of come together, see the thing. Random Mark dude walks in making a joke about the beast asshole. And then
right.
Fjall just like rips him in half. He doesn't exist anymore. Like, he doesn't even have parts. He's just paste, apparently. And then like he like kills Brother Death, and then Isla starts singing, and he snaps out of it enough to tell her like, oh, you're gonna have to kill me. And then she just like stabs him in the heart and kills him, and he just dies immediately. You know, never mind the fact that his like physiology has been permanently changed by like the mutagens and stuff that he has ingested. And like, we literally see Geralt get his carotid artery ripped out by someone's teeth and still survives, but a stab to the heart, that'll do it. That'll do it.
That's it. That's all it takes.
But anyways,
that's his glowy weak point, because he's a video game character.
Yeah, he dead. And everyone's sad. Zakare like links Syndrome and Balor to the monolith, and like Syndrome like puts some energy into it, and it explodes, and starts the conjunction of the spheres. And now there's humans. And then
humans show up, and we see like the whole seaside thing with like a boat that crashed, and humans are all over the place.
I mean, like, at least they did the first landing, I guess, like where humans did show up on boats. So that's cool.
Yeah. Also, the humans spoke a different language, which I was so like, as soon as they started looking at each other, I was like, they're going to talk and say the same. They're going to understand each other's language, aren't they? And they didn't, which is at least something to their credit on that.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Although, like, the humans, I think, would be speaking how everyone else in the series has been speaking, and the elves would be speaking in like Elder speech. But, you know, I guess we've
been in Elder speech the whole time,
and the human just showed up and started speaking like common or something.
Right.
Whatever. Then we see a little like collection of parts of like Fjal's funeral, Central's funeral. Brother Death isn't dead apparently. His eyes just messed up. Although, like, I'm pretty sure whenever it showed him, like a chunk of his head was missing. But whatever.
Magic. They healed him with
Eridan's boyfriend, because apparently they decided that he was important enough to come back, even though we saw him one time, is like, I assume mourning Eridan on a rock. He's just on a beach somewhere and there's a rock, and then it cuts to Eridan. So I guess you're to assume that he's mourning, you know, his lost boyfriend.
Right. Right.
You know, fine. Eridan finds like a creature's skull in like some dirt, and now he puts it on because naturally you would put it on, and naturally it fits as a perfect helmet.
It's a helmet. It just fits right on his head. Yeah. Because from that moment on, he decided, I will be the Wild Hunt.
Yeah.
And just was like, what?
Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, he's the head of the Wild Hunt. Now, we knew that that was going to happen. Whatever.
Right.
And then Skian is over there doing like sword stances around, like with a bunch of like cairns around her, which I'm assuming are like, because cairns are like normally like markers for like graves. So it's
Burial
like, I
mounds.
guess that's all of her people,
right.
And she's like kind of honoring her tribe or whatever.
That part was fun. That part was cool. I was like,
that part was cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Then we cut to the town that we started in, and Isla is there with Meldoff and Ithilene, and she's fucking pregnant.
Of course she is. Yes, we needed to have the, like, it couldn't just be elder blood comes from elves, from a line of them from a long time ago. It had to be the Witcher, the made up new Witcher planted this seed and now is going to be a child that has elder blood, right? Like, we had to have that happen.
Yeah. And so, and then Ithilene has a prophecy, but basically tells us that like Isla's going to give birth to Lara Thorin. All right. And then it cuts back to Yaskier, who seems to be really confused about the way the story ended. Mm-hmm. And you know what? It's fine, bud. We all were.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the end.
Yeah. Yeah. And then all of a sudden he's like teleported back to the battle, but the battle's over and the elves come and tap him on the shoulder and like, come on, buddy, let's go. And that was it. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, you guys process some of that. We'll be right back because we got to thank our patrons, and then we'll explain a little bit more of our thoughts. So don't go anywhere.
Very well. Let us get this over with. Something has infested my vineyard.
Mm-hmm. Great. Let me go prepare my something oil then.
All right, here we are in the middle of the show. We've got a brand new patron. We have Toasty. We have a new tier for Leshin joining us. Sarah Beth M, welcome to the Patreon. You're welcome to join us at the end of the month, which, let's see, what's the end of the month going to be? The 30th, Monday, the night of the 30th, 9 p.m. Eastern, in order to join us for the chat this month. So that's awesome. Thanks for joining us on there. And thank you to all 16 of our current patrons, including our higher vampires, Jared M. and Ben of Temeria. Thank you too much. Thank you too much. Thank you too much. Thank you too much. You guys are too supportive. You need to chill out. Stop it. But thank you to everybody who supports us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Witcher Lorecast if you want to help us out, get t-shirts, ad-free episodes, join us on future episodes, things like that. And we don't have any new reviews this week, but if you'd like to leave a 5-star rating and a review on Apple Podcasts, we'll read it out on a future episode of the show, or just rate us on other shows or tell your friends or whatever. Any of that stuff is extremely helpful. But that's all we got for this week. Let's get back to the rest of the show.
You smell of death and destiny, heroics and heartbreak.
It's onion.
Right, yeah.
All right. So we're going to wrap this up, but let's start with, what do you want to talk about, the lore? What does and doesn't fit in the lore? Because
so like, if you thought the last stuff didn't really fit the lore very well, like the first 2 episodes, this just took it and broke it. This broke, like, everything here was just wrong. Like,
right.
I'm trying to like be as like, I'm not trying to just like, shit on this, but obviously like this is like, there's so many things here. I don't even know, like, one, we'll just start with this. We'll just start with, they made a Witcher. Witchers don't come around until after the conjunction of the spheres.
Yeah. That's like that. We didn't need a Witcher before the conjunction of the spheres. So they did it because that seemed like, I mean, they're pandering to the audience, right? We need a Witcher in the show for it to be the Witcher show. So they add that in, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, like, obviously all the characters whose names we know from this, like, there's that, obviously, like, none of them really fit into this or whatever. Eridan's not even, Eridan and Avalok aren't even supposed to be here. I mentioned that last time.
1,200 years in the past. They're not supposed to be alive yet.
Yeah. Apparently that Witcher that they made wasn't sterile like they're supposed to be, because he knocked her up.
Yep.
So
was it really a Witcher?
It was like it was a bad first draft.
I guess so. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah. So, all of that, the conjunction with like the monoliths and everything, like the monolith, destroying the monolith caused the conjunction.
Yeah. Also not good.
Which is like, the thing is about that, right? The thing is about that, and this is something that like I didn't even like we didn't even talk about, because like I forgot that this was like a thing they kept showing, which was like, it ended up being completely insignificant. It wasn't like they didn't do anything with it at all, but like they constantly showed Merwin looking up at the sky at like these 2 comets or something,
right,
that were in the sky. And like, I thought back whenever I was still watching like episode 1 and thinking that, hey, maybe this show will actually be good. I was looking at it and I was like we know that, like, I was assuming that the conjunction was going to happen by the end of this.
Right.
I didn't know by what means, but I was like, we know it's going to happen. It makes sense for them to show it here because this is before it. But obviously, like, and I thought that they were like being kind of like a little bit like clever with it, and like those like comments were the other spheres incoming to collide with theirs.
Yes, absolutely. I had the same thought.
You're assuming spheres, globes, like each one is a world, a round world that are like colliding. And it's like, it's still mystical, but it's kind of like a physical manifestation, because we know that they physically collide with each other and these things happen. And I thought that was going to happen. No, they were just fucking comets.
Right. They were just comets.
They were insignificant. They didn't matter at all.
Right.
So, but so they decided that the monolith breaking was what did it. Sure. The stuff with the chaos magic, not how that works either, but cool.
Right. The conjunction is supposed to have brought all magic to the continent, not just chaos magic. Also, should have brought elves to the continent, but the elves are already there. Also, the men show up later, not right after the conjunction. The elves
do show up before the conjunction.
They show up before.
Yeah, they show up before. Well, it's weird. No, they don't. It's like a weird thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the conjunction, then elves, then humans.
Then humans
it's
later.
Like a weird thing.
Yeah, it's like the conjunction and the elves and the monsters. Boom. They all kind of happen at the same time.
Wait, they don't.
Don't they?
I think the elves show up before the conjunction. It's weird. It's because you look back at I believe the elves come because the elves knew how to do it from their other world. They hopped off their world before, but it was before the conjunction because they didn't have monsters yet when the elves settled.
So that part is actually right then.
Yeah, but like there was the split of the elves and like and and I think we were supposed to get more elves with the conjunction because, obviously hopping worlds. But, we obviously know that like the A and L are not supposed to be there, but there was a couple there that I could point out. But yeah, they were there before because they knew how to do, because I don't know how they did it from their original world. They don't talk about the original world,
right?
But we do know they figured it out. Obviously, the A and L figured it out because of unicorns. But they use unicorns to like do stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. But conjunction happens. The humans are supposed to show up later on the first landing or whatever. Apparently, they just show up right away. There's not a period of time where they don't show up, but that's fine. It's fine. Whatever. I'm trying to think what else lore wise. Specifically, I think those are like the big hitters. I think those are the big like discrepancies with the lore.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's one of those things where it's just like, if you were going to go do this, why write it this way? And it's because I don't. It's one of those like, well, we just thought this would be better. Right. But it's just not. Well, here, let's talk about some pros. What things were actually good?
I thought I can't knock on it. And like, granted, her other songs weren't as like impressive. I don't like her like bigger ones or whatever. Like they were good. The songs were good. But like this one, like I felt like you actually like the actress can actually sing.
Yeah.
This song about the lovers passing on and meeting each other in the next life, like her vocals on it were incredibly good. Like that song, I like thoroughly enjoyed the song. I enjoyed it a lot more whenever I wasn't looking at the screen and watching Fial fall in love with her. But like just hearing the song,
it's just the music itself. I think in general, the music across the series is actually very good. Like, but I don't have any complaints about any of the music. The use of it in the plot, a little funny, but the actual songs themselves, and even just the soundtrack, like some of the sweeping vistas with the music, like that stuff, fine. Like that, nothing wrong with any of that stuff. So what else do you like?
It was still like, obviously all of the character development, I'm using quotations for those of you that are just listening to the audio only. Like it was all rushed because it was just exposition. It wasn't them like actually like really revealing. It was them telling people because like they needed to have some character development before this series was over. That was essentially like the reasoning. And you could feel it in them because like Meldoff has just met these people. Like normally telling this kinds of stuff,
these
with
kinds
how
of
like
stories
bad the stuff that she said.
Yeah.
Normally,
right.
It takes a while to warm up to people enough to like reveal this kind of stuff. Right. Except for like people online who just like trauma dump stuff like that.
But even that's anonymous.
But like, so that part was awkward, but like the stuff that she told us, like the stuff about like the woman she was in love with or whatnot, that was actually like heartfelt. Like I had like a little bit of like an emotional attachment to that.
I think her acting is great.
Really sick.
I think her delivery is like you talked about in the last episode, how she's like a little bit too crazy for what happened to her.
Well, see, that's the thing is that they dropped that. She's not crazy at all in these episodes.
Right.
She's a little wacky, but like she was like off the walls crazy in the last, like in episode 2. Right. In this, she's normal except for like being like a little weird. Right. And it's like
she's vengeful and she does terrible things, but she's heartbroken. Yeah, but and this goes back to what I was talking about last time. Like the acting sells me on the character. But the way the story's written makes me go, really?
Yeah, it's good. It's like, but yeah, the consistency there was completely off because like, if anything, like if you're that crazy while you have a purpose, like once the thing that you have achieved, because she says that she killed all the people that wronged the one that killed her girlfriend. Right. She got her revenge. So once you lose the purpose or like the drive, that much like that much like mental trauma and issues that have caused you to be like writing on the walls in blood crazy should tilt you over the edge into like total like a total psychotic break. You normally gets worse when you don't have something to attach to.
Right.
So, because at this point, the only attachment, she doesn't have an attachment. She just wants to die. Right. Which by the end of the fourth episode, by the way, she's just fine living. She's at the inn. Right. She's at that town with Isla. She has grown okay with
she's moved
keeping on.
Right. Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on from her.
I was attached to her stuff. As far as everyone else's character, like I would have been but they made a joke out of Brother Death stuff, which honestly, it started to be like, it was like, damn, this dude's been through some shit. Yeah. And it was like, he's about to like, granted, it's still telling us stuff, but it was like, you're about to tell us like what the crazy, like this dude's like, I've done really evil things in my life, and he's about to tell us about it, but then they just joke about it and like have her fall asleep. And it's like, okay, well, like you basically like disregarded this character. Right. Like you just made him like unimportant with that action right there, which is like, it's like disrespectfully, like it's disrespectful to that. Like it was.
Okay. So instead of moving on to the cons, why don't we frame it this way? If you were to fix this, if you were to do this and do it right, how would you do it? Because I've got some ideas, and I'm sure you have some ideas too.
Okay. So I'd have to roll it back to the beginning of the series.
So how would you do the entire, like, how would you set up the series? Because I mean, I could start if you want to think about this some more, because I've got some ideas right on the tip of my tongue.
I do have some ideas. It's just there's like quite a few things that I would have to do to fix it.
Right.
So
well, one would be make it match the lore, right? Like why not?
Obviously,
why break the lore? It doesn't need to.
That goes without saying. Sure. The lore stuff, I would fix it. I would slim down the amount of characters we have to if we're going with the same storyline, assuming because we kind of have to go with
stuck with 4 episodes. Like if we're stuck with 4 episodes only, then you have to slim it down. I think that this suffers from the same thing that we talked about in the season 2 of The Witcher, like a year ago, is that it needs more episodes in order to fully flesh out a story as complex as this, right?
It definitely does.
So imagine if you had 7 imagine this was a 10 episode series. You had 7 episodes. Each one of those episodes details the origin and the trials of each of these characters. And on the 8th episode, they come together, and then you have a conclusion. No? Because then at least you understand why to care about the characters. Like you get a background on each of them.
I would still give more episodes, because regardless of what you're doing here, it needs more episodes. 4 was just not enough for this. But I would keep it to the lore. So we're not going to have a Witcher. We're not going to have monsters. We're not going to have to deal with anything. These are just people versus people. Right. This is just elves fighting elves for this stuff like this. So I would trim down to the other. And if we're going with more episodes, I would trim it down to like Fial and Isla to start. And I would give them like 2 to 3 episodes, just them. Just them
building that relationship
by themselves, like having like building like the relationship that's there, hinting towards the romance that you're thrusting us towards, or that you just drop on us before. But like have moments.
It's a better verb.
Yeah, sorry. And then like add in skiing on like episode 4, or like show us in like episode like, you know, in 3 or cut to like things about like skiing. It starts showing us her like like by herself, and like, you know, maybe like moments of her like praying or like going out to those cairns and like maybe
lamenting the loss of her people.
To like her people, like, you know, how you talk
her
to
ancestors,
her talking to it, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Get us into that. And like drop little bits here and there talking about the clans, like, you know, like mentioning how like Ghost Clan was like wiped out. And so we like, because you don't have to give us full exposition on them, but you don't have to tell us like a lot of stuff about them, if you just drop a little like line, Fjall and Isla talking about like, like what kind of help can we get for this kind of job, and like mentioning like him being like, maybe him not knowing and being like, hey, like Ghost Clan, and then Isla being like, no, we can't because like they're wiped out, they're gone, and like there you go, we now know, and then we can see Skian. You could even have like a little exposition thing there where Fjall or Isla's talking about like, well, there is this one person, and as it's happening, we're seeing Skian, and like it's bringing her up.
Well, yeah. What if it was Skian's? What if Skian hears about these two outlaws and it's her idea to reunite with the Lark because she realizes that like now's her time to get vengeance, and it becomes her being motivated rather than being pulled into it.
Yeah. And then, of course, show us more moments with Isla interacting with people. So we get the dynamic of like, what is the Lark?
Right.
Why is the Lark important? And then cut out the other characters. Just get rid of them. I don't like you can mention Syndrel, but just have him like be dead. Just have Syndrel be a dead dude. Like Balor killed him or something. And on the other side, just like give us, honestly, just give us Balor. Merwin was not important, honestly. Just get like Merwin was like you could have had Merwin in it and like still had Fjall be banished from Dog Clan because he was like screwing the princess, but then just have the princess die in that. And Balor takes over.
What if Balor was part of the like we didn't need the whole like I'm lowborn, you hate me because I'm lowborn thing. Like what if he was just one of the siblings who was rivaling with each other over power? Right.
Yeah.
And so the princess is his sister and he just has her offed. Boom.
Yeah.
Done.
Just like you kill her and like you can have the wipeout stuff without the monster. And just like he just like kills everyone. And then like we can get just Balor and maybe even see more stuff where it's him like interacting with whatever. Like I guess
so. But what would make sense here would be like they discover the big pillars, the big monoliths. And then because he's a mage, he taps into it, but he's like communicated from another plane by some sort of terrible thing. Like one of the big bad monsters that we learn about in the Witcher universe that comes from this other plane. And that's what tempts him in order to do the terrible things and corrupts him. And so over time, due to that corruption, he does terrible things. And then they realize that they need to stop him. And
but still show like even then, like you could still show us like give us a villain who's just not not just a bad guy. Like that's something that I feel like I'll like
right. In this case, he was a curious academic who gets basically corrupted,
but he's still got like that relationship. We can still have the apprentice and have that relationship and also like still have the that person like having that like representation of the deaf person in there and getting more of it.
And we don't even need the discovery of maybe the monoliths are just part of the city. It's not like something they discovered that now they're using for a reason that it's not. Maybe it's always been part of the city that since they took it from the dwarves or whatever, but the conjunction of the spheres is slowly getting closer and getting closer and getting closer. And so now because those monoliths are big magical monuments, they start to hum and do things, which creates the curiosity. And as the spheres start to blend into each other, now portals start opening unexplained, not having anything to do with what he's doing necessarily, and that's where the demonic influence comes and corrupts him. And then now we've got this. Now what the heroes are trying to do is try to figure out a way to stop Balor from being such a dummy and corrupting the world with terrible portals or whatever.
And
who knows?
And like you could even make it a more like even like in the sense of like or even just like he's losing it because it's like an apocalyptic story. Like have like those things, like those comets, have them like they're heading towards them and like getting to the point where like he's like seeing like this omen for like the end times even. And like the things whispering in his head and he's just getting more and more paranoid, and that's what's causing these things because he thinks that the end of days is here, kind of thing. And like eventually at the very end, like we find out, because it is in typical Witcher fashion to find out like your struggles don't really matter at the end of things, because like,
or the villain that you think is the bad guy isn't actually the bad guy. That's another one that happens all the time.
They kill Balor like at the very end of it, and it's like this big like big conflict because he's, at this point he's grown more powerful and more paranoid and crazy, and is just like relentlessly against them, and they have to like struggle because they're all just people. It's just Fjall and Isla and Skian, and they're just regular people, and they have to like outmaneuver and like beat the mage, who is
the other thing,
powerful.
the other misconception they can have is maybe the entire time they think it's Balor who's opening portals and doing terrible things, but the portals are just opening because the conjunction is starting to happen. And maybe that's why monsters start showing up. Maybe we get the initial like influx of some monsters here and there, and we get this impression of like, what is he doing? He's tapped into this dark magic. He's the one causing it. And then eventually find out like, no, he's not the one causing it. It's happening on its own. There's nothing he can do. And if anything, he's the one who could stop it, but it's too late because now they killed him. Oh God, what are we going to do? Conjunction happens. End of story. And then, and then it's like, because I mean, that feels way more like that's the other big thing with the stories. It doesn't feel like a Witcher story. Yeah.
And specifically, I will say like just a specific thing that I would have maybe in like episode 5, because like, I'm gonna be honest, like Fjall felt like the main character, and honestly, he didn't contribute a whole lot. It was just kind of like whatever. And I think it would have been a cool like detail of like, having it come down to the 2 women versus Balor. Like it had been cool, show off more badass women. That's what we want. But basically, and in order to have a monster fight in the series, because like you have to, right? Even though the monsters are here, but you have a portal open up how it did before with the skill, and they fight it. Like have all 3 of them actually like have to fight a monster, and they're like, obviously the odds are against them, and it's a very hard, gritty, like drawn out fight, and Fjall dies during it. And Isla connects, that like, these portals are opening. It's Balor's fault. This thing got in here and killed Fjall because of Balor, and like the vengeance becomes like in by this point, obviously, like they've developed the romance enough to where it's not like just slammed in your face. And like she actually like, or don't even have a romance at this point. Never mind. Screw the romance. Just have them like grow really close together as friends.
Like bond over fighting together.
Yeah.
Why aren't they just battle buddies?
Yeah. And
they save each other's butts a few times, and now it's like, well, I owe you my life. And the other one's like, well, I owe you my life too. I've never found somebody who, like I can connect with as much in battle. Okay, great.
And she goes on like, they go on like the like to kill him, to kill Balor, for Fjall. And it's just the 2 of them, so they can sneak into the city and infiltrate the castle, because honestly, that's just a better plan in the first place. Because like, if you just got 2 people, it's easy to sneak around rather than having a whole bunch of people. And they, they make it up there, and they're able to just like one-on-one him. And it's like, to honor Fjall, like they go into this to honor Fjall, and they get him, or they kill Balor, but it doesn't matter.
But it doesn't help. And it doesn't help.
We see the conjunction, like the conjunction happens. And it's just kind of like,
if we're left at the end of this with the conjunction happens, and then monsters, that, or the people are now suffering because monsters are everywhere, and some sort of like moment where they look at each other at the end and they're like, dear God, they
could just say fuck, and they could relate it back to
we as the viewers know, that's the whole lesson of this is what happened. This is what the conjunction was like. And now there's all these monsters. This is why Witchers are necessary. Boom. That's it. That's all you need. Like instead they're trying to explain the Elder Blood. They're trying to explain who Eridan is. They're trying to explain who, Wimpy Mage Dude, who isn't actually Wimpy Mage Dude, is what's his name? I'm so bad with names. Avaloc. Like, where did Laura Doran come from?
They're not in this story.
They don't need to be in here at all.
They're not supposed to be
here. Don't like just leave all that. Just write a good story that is basically the tale of when the conjunction happened and why there's so many monsters in the world, and how even to their best attempt they couldn't stop it. because it wasn't the effects of just one madman. It was something beyond that, right? Like, this is the nature of the universe, and it is terrible and hard. In fact, that's what they've been trying to put forth. Like, that's why this elven society, which is supposed to be the golden age of elven society, is a bunch of people living in the gutters and, making fart jokes. Like, right? Like they're trying to say, like, this is a rough world, and yet, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. It's just like, with that, like, if you like cut it down to like just it being Isla Fial skiing on the one side and just Balor on the other. Like, you have...
Yeah, we didn't need the D&D campaign version of this.
Yeah, you have the the time to like highlight like all of these people and like develop these characters. If you like extend over to like, this could be like a 7 to 8 episode series like here, and like just take the time to develop these characters rather than having them. And you could have the other ones in there and just have them be like people that they come across as like a one hit in a show. Like, they come across Brother Death at one point, like during like episode 3, and like they have like a cool like exchange or something.
Something he does helps them along their way, and then
it passes on. Or like one of them gets injured and like they meet Zakara and like she helps heal like after the bank fight. You could have kept the bank fight. Zakara helps heal Skian, and then they move on. And like we've seen Zakara.
And maybe it could be one of those things where like they meet these people along the way. Those people somehow learn what their agenda is, and then in the end they show up at the end somehow to help out. And that sounds cheesy, but it would still be better than what we got.
Than trying to drag all of them along for 3 episodes, because they all show up in episode 2, and then you're now stuck with these 7 characters on one side and 4 major characters on the bad side.
Yeah, it's
Merwin, Avalok, Eridan, and Balor. They're all trying to flesh out on the bad side of things. Yeah. And now you just have it's 11 characters that you're trying to make us all care about. Plus you keep adding random ass like the fucking mercenary captain dude. Right. One dude never even drew his sword the entire time. He was just telling people what to do and talking about his enormous balls and the monster's asshole. That's all he did.
He was supposed to be comedic.
He was wandering around the castle.
He was supposed to be like a comedic
no reason
addition, but it just wasn't. It just didn't work.
The jokes did not. Like, it was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, like, aren't you supposed to be doing something? You're getting paid here.
Your soldiers are out there dying in the street, and you're here looting the castle? Like, why are they following you? I would have mutinied against you so long ago if this is the kind of person you are.
Yeah. Well, I think we've dug the grave pretty deep. So
I like like we said before, we're not here to like shit on these things. We're like,
we genuinely wish that this had been better. Like, I really, we both like, and that was my point of like, how would you fix this? Like, I think that there's a version of this that could have worked.
Yeah. It's just like, for the version that they gave us is so egregiously wrong that like, there's just so many things we'd have to change.
Here's my final analogy, and it's another Marvel one. We've got like the Hulk stuff. We've got the, whatever else we've mentioned so far. You know what this feels like?
Isla screaming. That was the most cringe scene in the entire show. Like, the scream didn't even feel real. Like, it was one, awkward and out of place, but 2, it's just like, why? Like, why are you screaming?
Yeah. Well, here's my best analogy. Do you remember the movie X-Men Origins Wolverine?
Yeah.
Do you remember how they totally did Deadpool wrong on that, and at the end he was this like weird combination of all these powers? That's what this felt like. It, like, in that movie they could have just stuck to the comic books and just done a cool badass Wolverine movie and have Deadpool in it and some other cool Marvel characters.
I'm gonna be straight honest. That Deadpool, with how like atrocious it was like,
that's what this Witcher feels like.
Well, that was like blockbuster cinema compared to this.
But that's what this felt like was like, all right, well now he's a Witcher, but he's like, it's not perfect, and so his face looks like he's already taken the extra potions even though he hasn't, and now all of a sudden he's the Hulk, and it's like, you didn't need to do any of that. You didn't need to do any of that. Like, why like, oh, this is going to play real well for the audience. It didn't. It just looked really bad and just felt dumb. So let's not do that. How about? Right? Why don't we just stick with, maybe if you're going to have Witchers in there, maybe the Witcher mutagen worked. How about that? How about he was just like, oh, now actually this worked out. I'm doing really awesome. We would have felt a lot better about that. And then maybe he gets killed by the monster at the end. Maybe they kill each other. And yeah, like, that would have been better. Anyway, so that's my last words on that. We need to wrap up the episode. I'm sure people have heard us complain enough. And, let us know your thoughts. Join us on the Discord. Well, share what you think. I hope season 3 is better than this, but I think it might be too late for them to learn lessons from this in order to fix that season.
I think it'll genuinely be better than this. Like, no offense to the cast. They, like, with what they were given, I think they all did a really good job.
Yes.
Their performances were like, most of them were really good. There was obviously like moments or whatever, but like even for characters that they really like, the emotion came out, and like, you know, those small moments that they got, I think they did a really good job. But I think like season 3 having Henry Cavill will still, because they'll have to have like relented at some points, and he will. You think he will, of course, corrected it a little bit, at least while he was still there? Yeah, I think that we'll get at least a somewhat better storyline, and his Geralt will really like still shine, like I hope so. I think we're gonna get these weird like wedged in moments where they're like, the audience will like this. Yeah. The other thing is just that like we're already like super attached to the character that is Geralt, and like a bunch of people were probably really attached to like Yennefer and Ciri as well, and like having that core of 3, like, of characters that we already know about, we're already attached to.
Doesn't that make it more dangerous?
It'll make it better, because like we actually get, the thing is that we also didn't care about the characters in this. Like, they didn't give us like, they gave us a bunch of random characters and didn't develop them enough for us to care about them. So it's kind of like it doesn't get to us. Like, at least with Geralt, Yennefer, and Ciri, like we already have grown attached to them, and so it'll like, at least their characters will make the season 3 better.
I hope you're right.
We'll see how it goes.
I hope you're right, because in my mind, that makes me go, but what if they put Ciri in this stupid situation that doesn't, or Yennefer in a stupid situation that really doesn't work, and then it's like, oh God, why did you do that?
I guarantee it'll be better, because there's no way that they'll have Geralt hulking out.
They might.
We can at least rely.
They might. They might.
I'm gonna sue Netflix if that's the case.
I wouldn't put it at this point. I wouldn't put it past them. They might.
I don't think
there are clearly things they're doing that are like, they think are going to play for the audience, and they just don't land.
I think we'll get something better. I think that it'll be at least a little bit.
We're just gonna have to wait and see. So we'll see who
you'll hear about it from us.
I hope it's awesome. My hope meter is lowering over time. Anyway,
come back in July, or we'll be talking about it once it comes out, and you'll be able to tell our feelings about it, because
we can't hold them in, obviously.
You know me. If you can get anything from this past 2 episodes, you know that I'm not going to be nice about it if it doesn't deserve it.
There you go. Dosi, what else are you doing? What else you want people to check out?
Follow us, the Lorecast, on Twitter. And if you're a fan of Cyberpunk, I do the Cyberpunk Lorecast with Genesis. And I also do the Cyberpunk Red Actual Play podcast, Cyberpunk 'D.
Yeah, go check those out on whatever podcatcher you're listening to this on. You can listen to those as well. And check out all the different shows. Those shows are also at robotsradio.net, along with my other shows, all the other Lorecasts that I do. So if you're into any of that stuff and you're looking for more content, that's a great place to do it. Otherwise, that's it. Like, hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Share your thoughts with us. We'd love to hear you. And until next time,
stay safe on the path.
We'll see you guys later. Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Witcher Lorecast. We'd love to hear about your experiences with the games and the books and the TV series and all your thoughts on everything. Please check out the Robots Radio Discord and follow us on Twitter at Witcher Lorecast.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.